Today's guest is a dual PGA Master and LPGA Master Professional with over 35 years in competitive golf experience, including having competed in 8 LPGA Tour majors. She's the owner of Alison Curdt Golf and the director of instruction at Wood Ranch Golf Club in Los Angeles, California. She has an extensive list of accomplishments, awards, achievements, accolades, degrees, and certifications. But what really drew me to Dr. Alison Curdt was that, like me, like you, she's the epitome of a high performer. Achievement is her drug. And those are her words, not mine, but I get it. I feel it in my bones, every ounce of my being. And we have an open, vulnerable discussion around why we perceive one new goal after the next, always striving for bigger and better. Real vulnerable conversation around emotional burnout, the perception of pressure, the difference between certain goals, detaching our results from our self-worth, and how and when we can strategically calibrate intensity to ensure our pursuit is sustainable. You're going to love this conversation. You're going to learn a tremendous amount. So buckle up and please help me welcome Dr. Alison Curdt to the show. Dr. Alison, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. How are you?
I am doing well, Paul. It's great to see you. Thanks for having me on today.
You are very welcome. And there's so much we need to cover today. I wish we had 4 hours, but we'll just have to do this again. But here's where I want to start. You have some incredible, rare dual qualifications and achievements. PGA Master, LPGA Master, Doctor of Psychology, and so many other golf-specific credentials, experiences, and victories. So my question for you, with all of that said, is what sacrifices or what trade-offs did you find yourself having to make? And how did you decide when one of these opportunities was a yes versus a no to preserve something else?
It's probably not the healthiest answer, but I sacrificed personal self-care time in order to be ambitious to accomplish these things that really fire me up. And I'm a very goal-oriented and task-oriented individual. So when I get my eyes set on a finish line, then I really engage myself into the process of everything I need to do to be successful. So it does take some sacrifice with social time, family time, things that would bring me joy outside of all of my projects and endeavors. But in a way, I'm also okay with that because I don't feel like high achievers are really ever in balance. When we talk about the past couple of years, having a work-life balance, ask Serena Williams if she had work-life balance to become the best tennis player in the world. Ask Tiger Woods if he had great work-life balance to become the best golfer in the world. Yeah. High achievers typically don't have that balance. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's the most unhealthy thing. It means that when I get my eyes set on a particular task or a goal, then I'm all in and I'm going to work towards it till I cross the finish line. And so there's sacrifices along the way when it comes to maybe, fun time, self-care time, or some family time here and there.
Was there ever a point in your journey at any time where there was an immense amount of guilt, uncertainty, and second guessing around, is this sacrifice worth it? Is this really going to get me to where I want at the expense of maybe severed or tension-filled relationships?
100%. It would be countless times to go back over the past, let's say 15 years. And when you're at the bottom of the barrel thinking like, why am I doing this? How do I pull myself out of it? The reward or the dopamine kick is certainly crossing that finish line, like I mentioned, or being able to finish the project. I think the part that has really helped me get through, though, is centering myself around people who understand my personality and who understand my work ethic and ambition. And I've made a statement before that one of my colleagues appreciates, like, achievement is a drug for me. And when I surround myself with people who understand that that's something that fires me up and fuels me, when they see me get to the bottom of the barrel and there's cortisol shooting all over my body and I'm stressed out and I'm bummed out and maybe a little depressed about why aren't things going the way I want them to go, they're there to support me, to say, you've been through this before, you've gotten over this obstacle, you've gotten over this hurdle. And sure enough, we know that hindsight is so much clarity. And so when I look back, it's the times that I was at the bottom, the piece where it feels like the biggest failure. That's where I learned the most. That's where I became the most resilient, got stronger. And so I have to appreciate those moments as awful as they do feel in the moment.
Yes, I love that. Achievement is a drug. That's so powerful. And I often come back to this quote, and I've shared it on the podcast before, and I will never hesitate to share it again. But from Ed Milet, he says, winning is more fun than fun is fun. And what I'm hearing from you, we think about fun in the traditional sense, the social outings, spending time with family and friends. But if you are so passionate and purpose driven about what you do, like the pursuit of achievement, in your words, is a drug. To me, it's intoxicating, it's fun. And I'm just so happy to hear someone share that and share it the way you did on the show. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. It's not a
Yeah.
very appreciated mindset in our culture because we're all about different philosophies and being all in and super action oriented and goal oriented. If you do it in a way that doesn't make or break you, but you do it in a way that fuels you and motivates you, then I think
Mm.
it's only healthy.
Was there a moment ever, and maybe this was just an internal dialogue, where you just decided, you made a choice, I'm going to give myself permission to be all in, understanding and accepting the sacrifices that came with that?
Yeah, so interesting moment in time actually came out of trauma. So in
Mm.
2006, I was in this place of just barely being out of college, being in the professional world, trying to figure out what's going to be my next path when all of a sudden my home burns down and I lose everything, every possession that I've ever owned, except for literally the clothes that I was wearing. Yes, it's one of those crazy stories that you only see about in movies. And at that time, I felt like I wasn't really being the best golf professional I could be. I wasn't being the best athlete I could be, may not have even been like the best person I could be. And so when everything was completely wiped away and I'm left with nothing, I had an opportunity to literally, like a phoenix from the fire, kind of reborn,
Yeah.
rebirth. And so it was really that moment that was like, okay, here's like actually a second chance with a clean slate. And you can't get any cleaner than this by not having anything. And I felt like that was kind of the moment, as awful as it was at the time. That was
Yeah.
probably like my rebirth, where I got
Hmm.
back to my roots of what really drives me and what's my work ethic philosophy. And all through elementary, middle, and high school and college, definitely a worker, very compliant, striving for A's, trying to be my best self. And I got away from that. So that moment
Mm.
in 2006 is where I got back to it and very quickly
Wow.
started a very passionate career in teaching and
Ah.
escalated and elevated my career quite quickly. And then soon after became the youngest PGA Master Professional on the record and kind of just expanded from there.
Wow. I really appreciate you sharing that. I mean, and so I'm curious, I love digging into this, and I know you appreciate it too. Like when you're at that, we'll call it a rock bottom, this incredibly traumatic experience, you're literally stripped of your identity other than what you have on your back at the time. What do the conversations sound like? Or better yet, what are some of the questions you asked yourself to give yourself the opportunity to change, learn, and grow from the experience?
There certainly goes to like a philosophical and spiritual moment of like, why
Hmm.
me? And I came across
Sure.
a book by Pema Chödrön of when bad things happen to good people. And
Hmm.
that particular book was sort of eye opening to me that there are going to be a lot of bad things that happen to people who believe that they're good and
Yeah.
contribute to society and don't break the law and treat other people with respect. And what do those experiences really teach us? And can we look at it as a moment of purpose where, like, I was able to
Hmm.
walk away healthy and whole, which I'm lucky to do that. But how could I use something that was so dramatic and scary and sad to give me an opportunity to reevaluate, like, what should I really be doing in life? And does it fit my moral and ethical code? So that particular book was eye-opening to me to change and reframe the narrative
Hmm.
around like why me? And I still have to catch myself across the years that when something I've really worked for doesn't go my way, like not everything goes my way, right? We know that in this world. I don't win every tournament that I want to win. I don't qualify for
Yeah.
everything I want to qualify for. I don't win every award I want to win. I sometimes will default into well, why not me? What
Mm,
held me back? What is stopping me? And I have to kind of dig deep into my contributions, my role, what more can I give, how am I perceived, and see if there's any opportunities for betterment. And so rather than just sort of wallow in that I didn't get first place and I'm going to cry about it like a little kid, it's can I use this opportunity to learn and see how I can be just a little bit better?
well said. And so that brings me to the next point, because you're in such a unique position where you've personally experienced tremendous highs, tremendous lows, as you just shared, professionally and personally, as it now kind of translates to your clients or how you would coach them or even coach yourself. Like, what are some of the pieces of feedback or those reframes you offer when someone is in the midst of their rock bottom? They're having a breakdown moment. They've performed poorly. They've underperformed. Like, what do those conversations sound like to help them bounce back, strengthen that resiliency within them?
It first starts with a lot of questions and having that athlete feel seen. One thing that
Mm,
annoys me as a person is if I'm sharing maybe a trial, a tribulation to somebody and they want to jump in and solve the problem right away, I don't feel heard or understood. And I have had countless times, Paul, students come to my lesson tee, what I kind of coined the term like golf suicide. They are ready to end it.
mm,
They're going to break up with the game. They're on the edge of the cliff. Like, if you don't help me do this, I'm done with this game. And I feel proud to say that I've saved a lot of golf lives. And part of that is through not offering the solution right away, but understanding what does it feel like for them? What are they really hoping to get out of the game? What is interfering with them from their goals? And having them feel so understood that I'm now an ally. Then that gives
yeah.
me the opportunity, since trust has begun to be built, to offer some opportunities to look at things differently. Well, what if we changed how we framed this particular failure? What if we went about the way that we're going things in a slightly different way where it's a little bit uncomfortable, but not the same way that you've always been doing it,
Yeah.
expecting different outcomes, which we know is the definition of psychosis. Um, Having that trust to be able to introduce like opportunities to go about things differently, and then
Yeah.
having them see for themselves what changes are made, as opposed to like promising something and under delivering. They need to be able to see for themselves, oh, yeah, you know what? When I don't beat myself up for missing a fairway, I could probably still make par rather than belittling myself and I've turned it into a double right away.
Yeah. So for those of you listening, I need you to go back and listen to those 2-3 minutes again, because what Dr. Allison just described is like elite coaching in its most simplest form. There's an empathy, a listening, getting the individual she's speaking with to feel heard, seen, understood, and validated. There's a humanness to it. But I love what you shared specifically in that through questions, inevitably you help your clients get to the answer on their own. So now they're empowered. They take ownership of the outcome, the change, the action that allows them to change the belief and behavior and ultimately the result. So again, go listen to that again. It's so freaking good. It's no wonder you had all the success you've had. Really, really good. So now I'm curious. We're gonna shift gears slightly here, because kind of in the undercurrent of our conversation so far, at least in my own little world here, is there's pressure for you to keep performing. You've had all these great achievements. You've had things you've missed out on. And I have an imagination you put some pressure on yourself. So I'd love to hear from you. Like, how would you define pressure, and how or why is it created?
Awesome question. I talk about this literally on the daily with so many different types of athletes. So I have this interesting belief about pressure. So pressure doesn't really exist except for the physics of pressure, like something pushing on your body.
Yeah.
But what most people are talking about is psychological induced pressure. And that really is the expectation or the belief that something should happen. So when I'm working with an elite high schooler and they say mom and dad are putting pressure on me to get A's, no, they're really not. They're setting an expectation or a bar of achievement. And then what you do with that information will make it feel like you need to do it. It's a demand, or
Yeah.
you could interpret it as a challenge, or you could completely disregard it and be discompliant with the parent. So pressure is kind of unique because when a player starts to set expectations, beliefs, or get too fixated on the outcome, this must happen. I must make this birdie to do this, or I must
Yeah.
win this tournament to do this. Our nervous system doesn't respond the way that we would like it to respond. It usually tends to fold. It gets us out of a flow state. It doesn't allow us to access stored memories of motor patterns, clear mindedness of decision making. So sometimes I feel pressure from timelines or deadlines. I need to do this
Hmm.
by this date. And that is my own self induced
Yes.
experience. And so I feel like each human is in charge of whether they feel pressure or not. And this is a fun little reframe. I'm not sure if you've heard this, but just the play on words of like, I have to do this or I get to do this is a little bit different of a vibe. Or sometimes we get into the I'm too busy. I'm too
Hmm.
busy. The reframe is I'm in demand right now. And
I
just
like that.
playing with the words a little bit can start to feel a lightness come over you from a physical sense and a psychological sense. So, an elite, going back to that elite high schooler, if they're feeling pressure because their parents are setting expectations and demands, they could reframe it to say, someone sees that I'm capable of doing better. Someone
Yeah.
sees that I have the potential to strive for these outcomes. Maybe I should tap into my greatness to see if I could do that. And if it doesn't
Mm.
happen, okay. But I'm going to enjoy the process of trying the challenge. I'm going to embrace the moment of the challenge. So, sort of a wraparound way to answer your question. But when I first hear of I'm under pressure, I'm like, no, you're not. You're creating pressure based on how you're perceiving someone else's or your own
Yeah.
expectations.
No, we want the long answers because this is where the magic, the gold is. And it's so, like, I knew this was going to be an aligned conversation. And I'm sure my audience, when I'm about to say this, is going to roll their eyes at me. Like, I use the I have to, I get to example all of the time. I love that you shared that. And again, I know I'm redundant to my longtime listeners here, but there's so much emotion, energy, and power, magic in our word choice. And if we feed our subconscious the right words, we just unlock a level of expansiveness, creativity, and clarity that it was once foreign to us. So again, for you listening, it didn't come from me. Another reminder of just how important it is to audit your self-talk. And what I hear two things kind of as a theme of what you were sharing. Number one, it's expectation management. And I've always been a big believer whenever there's an incongruency or a gap, expectation and reality, that gap invites in doubt, shame, frustration, anger, and disappointment. Yet we have a choice, as you just shared. We can respond and be up for the challenge. We can completely dismiss it. You know, in the case of the high schooler, we can rebel, but it's an opportunity for us to choose. And I hear through that opportunity, there's a choice and an opportunity to share or show our commitment to the goal by rising to the occasion, just through a simple mental reframe there.
Yes, and it reminds me of another good book that I've read called The Gap and the Gain. And
Yes.
it looks like you've read that as well. The difference of where I'm at and where I expect to be, if I'm looking forward to that expectation and I'm kind of wallowing in where I'm at right now, that seems like a void or a gap. But if
Yeah.
I look at where I'd like to go and I'm looking at where I'm at right now and kind of look in the rearview mirror for a second and say, wow, I've come pretty far. There's just a little bit more for me to go. And now I feel like I've gained. I've actually made progress. So let's say you didn't qualify for a particular tournament, but it was the highest finish you've ever had. It doesn't have to be a failure that the person didn't qualify. It could be a huge gain. This is the best finish I've ever had, or this is the best way I've closed out a
Yes.
tournament. So the perception It fits so in line with psychology and hypnotherapy as well. It's the perception that is a huge, huge make or breaker in achievement, happiness, um, fortitude, grit, all
Yeah.
of that.
I love that book. It had a very profound impact on my life. And candidly, it's still something I struggle with. I feel like I'm wired to be impatient, this false urgency that sometimes I lose my grip of control over because I want the results yesterday. The work is there, and we both know very well there's that lag effect. Input is not equal to output on a timeliness or on an actual scale size. But it's important to understand, again, you have an opportunity to choose how you see what outcome unfolds. I'm closer than I think versus look how far I have to go. And I think there's so much application to that on and off the course that if you can learn to ask better questions and see the situation for what it is, just like you alluded to, there's more peace, contentment, joy, happiness, which are all higher vibrational frequencies and energies that give you the gumption and motivation you need to keep taking action.
I say curiosity is the antidote to so many of our mental diseases, if you will,
Yeah.
our psychology diseases. It's curiosity is the antidote. So just being less critical, less judgmental, and being curious. How could I go about this? What other opportunities are there? What other ways for me to approach this challenge? Um, what am I feeling right now? Why might I feel this way? What other times have I felt like this? That curiosity oftentimes will open up some doors for answers instead of us
Yeah.
just being in anger or frustration because something didn't go the way that we liked it to.
So well said. And just again, for you listening, like you're getting the blueprint, the playbook on how to begin having better conversations with yourself. You've heard us both hit on the power of word choice, the power of curiosity and asking the right questions. I mean, that is your fast track to leveling up, to having that breakthrough, because all along the way, you're developing such a deeper, more intimate and understanding relationship with yourself. And when you know yourself, you can be better informed, have the clarity you need to make the right decisions. Now, I'm going to bring all of this together is my hope. It sounds good in my head right now. We've talked about how much you are addicted to achievement. There's this passion, this obsession, if you will. That was my word, not yours specifically. And we talked about the sacrifice required to stand out, to be outstanding, to have that next level success. What is your relationship like with the word grind, and the context being grinding it out, teetering between burnout and just getting by on to the next thing, on to the next thing? You alluded to neglecting self-care in your personal journey. Like when you hear an athlete that's just grinding on the range, how do you approach that conversation?
Yeah, it's again what the word means to the individual. And I think that it could go two different ways. Grind could have more of a negative connotation, and grind could also be more of a positive connotation. For me personally, I felt like, and this could, from the outside looking in, could be much different than how my own internal experience is, but I don't feel like a lot of stuff comes easy for me. And
Okay.
because of my connection with wanting to cross the finish line or accomplish the goal, I therefore have to grind to get to the end, which means
Yeah.
I don't give up, which means I keep trying, which means I fail a whole bunch of times and then come up with
Mhm.
different ways to get to the end. So for me, grind has a very positive connection because it means a try hardness or a
Okay.
try until you get it done type deal. And then, of course, from the outside, people may be like, oh, you've got everything. Think life is so easy for you. And I'm like, it's all our internal experience, right?
Yeah.
When I then see a player who's on the range who's frustrated and they're like, man, I'm grinding out this swing change and it's not just working for me, I tend to think, well, they're picturing grind as being more on the negative. They
Yeah.
have an expectation to accomplish something in a given window, and they're not meeting their timeline. So they're
Mhm.
grinding, they're trying harder, they're trying more, they're trying more frequency and not getting the results that they want. So in that respect, it's like we need to do something different because that grind is not productive. The grind would be
Yeah.
step back and let's go about it a different way. The grind would be practice smarter, not necessarily harder. The grind would be embracing failure and being curious about it and learning from it
Mm.
so that the next time that we fail better. till we get to the moment of success. And that shift changes, I think, for people, the relationship with the word grind. I think a lot
Yeah.
of my elite high schoolers will be like, oh, I just grinded it out till the end. And I'm asking them, like, what did it feel like? Was it hard? Were you more locked in? Was your focus at a different intensity? Were
Mm.
you engaging in different behaviors that you normally don't engage in? Like you're not looking at the leaderboard, you're focusing on the moment or the process at hand, so that we can help identify truly what the word means to the player and then use that in an adaptive way.
I love that unique lens or definition of how they see and interpret the word. Like I wrote down in my notes as I'm listening to you, like you gave an example, like when you described your personal relationship with, I heard durability, I heard commitment,
Mhm.
resiliency, grit, and they're similar, but we know they're uniquely different too. Whereas then the example of the individual, burned out on the range 6, 8, 10, 12 hours a day, it's like, okay, that's clearly counterproductive. So I hear, and I wrote down calibrated intensity, meaning you're smart in your approach, you're intentional, but when it's time to, do the thing, you are so fucking locked in, you're doing it. But then there's an adequate time away or opportunity for rest and recovery, I would imagine as well.
100%. You can't be the
Yeah.
best version of yourself if there's no gas in the tank. And
Yeah.
so no one operates great being burned out. So,
Yeah.
yes, self care is how you fuel yourself up. But I think also people can fuel themselves up in other ways. And if you are literally at the point of burnout, you have to stop because you're not going to
Yeah.
get any more out of it by grinding more. You're just burning calories at that point.
Yeah, as Tim Grover has a good analogy there. He talks about, if you keep grinding and grinding, if you grind a literal stone or rock, it literally turns into nothingness. Like it's like
Right.
that's you. That's what you become.
Yeah. That's a great analogy. It disappears,
Yeah.
right? It turns into nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those of you listening too, there's a really good book. The title I'm going to butcher, but it's something, I think it's called Peak Performance. Brad Stulberg's one of the co-authors on it, but they give this very simple, applicable equation, growth equals stress plus rest. Rest is an integral part of the growth equation. So if it's fine tuning one of the skill sets on the golf course, one of your business or professional skills, or just how you show up in your communication with yourself, your significant other, or otherwise, calibrated intensity implies you're sprinting, you're acquiring the knowledge, you're integrating, you're practicing, and then you're stepping away. You're letting it actually fully be integrated so you can begin to embody it. You can access it unconsciously and fully put those new skills on display. Not possible without adequate rest.
100%. I would even add, if we think about from a physiological perspective, how do we build muscle, get muscle growth? We break the
Yeah.
muscle down by stressing it, and then we eat and sleep and rest so that it builds back up. But if we continue to stress the muscle and break it down, it never has the opportunity to grow. We put this
Yeah.
in a neurological sense. We've got these neurological pathways where we're trying to build more myelin around that
Mm.
pathway so that messages travel faster to our muscles. We have to essentially run those patterns multiple times in order to pave new pathways to get to different
Yeah.
motor patterns, to get to different behaviors that we want to exhibit on the golf course. Having a little bit of stress, having a little bit of failure, it is not a bad thing. It all is part of the recipe of getting to success.
Very well said. And two, very relatable, digestible examples. So now we'll take it to a step further. We've talked about, again, this achievement is a drug. We're committed, we're obsessed, we're passionate, we're making intentional sacrifices. We're recalibrating our intensity so that it can be sustainable or so that we're durable. And I don't know if you personally relate to this, but I have an imagination in those you've worked with. You've seen it play out where these athletes, these high performing entrepreneurs, begin to lose themselves in their respective field or craft. Their identity becomes so enmeshed with the scorecard, with the sales numbers. What can somebody listening who really is identifying with that begin to do, begin to ask themselves perhaps to start finding themselves again and detaching from their results or their sport?
That is such a awesome question and a complex question that
Oh.
really pervades so many high achievers is separating and cutting the umbilical cord from
Mm.
who the person is to what they produce. And
Yeah.
I say this from experience because I too have had to work on this, and maybe you as well, being a high
Hmm.
achiever, is that we are not the things that we produce. We are people and we produce cool things, but we are not the things that we produce. And if I shoot 72, that should not change my ego, my confidence, my psyche in terms of I'm a good person. And
Hmm.
when I shoot 82, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm now a bad person. It is
Yeah.
separating what we have contributed or given from who we are as a person. So, for those people that are finding themselves enmeshed in the outcome and connected from the outcome, I really, really encourage you to either work with a professional to help you understand why that connection has been made, whether you're trying
Hmm.
to fill in a void of yourself that is empty through success, and how to start understanding that you are enough and you are good enough as is, no matter what you produce. And although that maybe sounds a little bit cliche, the thing is, we can't produce and be successful in the ways that we want unless we are whole as a person. Because at some point, the house of cards is going to fall.
Yeah.
And for a lot of elite players that are, I kind of keep going back to high schoolers because I feel like that's a really vulnerable population.
Yeah.
They get so connected to their AJGA ranking, their junior golf score, their who's talking to them at college, that they lose themselves as a person. Like, I'm a good human being. It's either like I'm
Yeah.
number 5 or I'm number 1,205, and that must not be
Yeah.
good enough. The
Yeah.
I'm not good enough theme and self belief tends to come up in so many elite golfers. I play well, everyone loves me. I don't play well, I'm not good enough. But even with
Yeah.
the average golfer out there, that elite or average golfer, if you shoot 92, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're not good enough. It is what you produced that day. And evaluate your skills, evaluate your contributions, evaluate what you did to create that score. And then, is there a way that you could do something different or better to see if you could produce
Yeah.
something else? And then to really separate the outcome versus who we are as a person.
It is so simple, like, and cliche, like I am enough, enoughness. But I swear, cliches are like the secret code to unlocking, success, love, happiness, all the above. But you're right. Like, I can't tell you how many times, what I work on with my clients is like feeling I am enough, or detaching from results. And I think it's important for those of you listening, like the attachment to your results, the enmeshing your identity and how worthy you feel in your results. It's a collection of learned feelings, beliefs, and behaviors. I use this example a lot. Episode 96 of the show goes into further detail, but it's very context specific here. If you grew up getting, praise, love, and validation when you brought home a report card with primarily A's, and then the one time there's a B or worse, a C, and it's just a quiet, cold environment, that little boy or girl begins to internalize, like, I only get love and validation when I get A's, when I perform well, when I get a result. And that's why you see it on the golf course. You see it in the business world as well. It's a learned thing to get your childhood needs met.
That is such a great talking point because there's so many really good mainstream books out there that encourage parents of athletes or just anybody, stop praising outcome. But that's
Yeah.
what our society does. When you win the green
Yeah.
jacket, when you win the trophy, we praise you. And we need to start praising effort. And I think a lot of that started to occur when we got into participation trophies, participation ribbons.
Hmm.
Everybody is equal. Let's treat everyone um, and support everyone. I want to support everyone, but you have to praise effort. If you didn't put in
Yeah.
the effort, you're probably not going to get the outcome. If you put in
Yeah.
the effort and you still didn't get the outcome, it must have been a really hard task and you're still good enough, but let's figure out a different way to
Yeah.
get the end result. And so, for any parents that are listening that have junior golfers, as soon as the junior golfer walks off that course, it should not be like, hey, great job shooting 68. It'd be
Yeah.
like, wow, it was really fun to watch you compete today. What was it like for you?
Mm,
I
I
can't
love that.
believe you composed yourself in such a neat, professional way. That made me really happy to watch you do that. It's not about the end result of the score. That's cool. You can still celebrate it in a productive way, but it's about the effort.
I love that. It reminds me when I was playing poker professionally, my ex-wife, wife at the time, she used to ask me, how much money did you make? And I was like, that's the wrong question. Like, you're going to drive me crazy because actually I played really well. But guess what? When you're a 98% favorite, the 2% still hits on occasion. And guess what, babe? It hit today and I'm kind of pissed off. So it was a moment which I was going to bring up at some point, like communication is so important. So in this case, I had to teach her and help her understand why that was not the best question and why it's not how I evaluated myself. If we go all the way back to the beginning of our conversation now around expectation management, the sacrifices you mentioned, like one of your superpowers has been surrounding yourself with the right like-minded people. You can only do that through honest, effective communication. First and foremost, you got to be honest with yourself. What do you want? What do you not want? And then you've got to have the courage to share that with people in your life so it serves as a natural filter to keep those around who support you no matter what you're going through.
Absolutely. That's a really, really good example. That 2%, you would think that you've got statistics on your side. And we look
Never
at so
felt
many
like it.
different stats in golf, and you just don't ever question golf because it'll sneak up on you at some particular
Yeah.
point. And the thing is, we can't change and control external stuff. So we can't change or control outcome. And I put it in golf context. You can't control cut line. You can't control the field. Can't control what other people are doing. So all you really can manage is your effort and your input into what you're doing, and then
Yeah.
literally let the cards or chips fall where they may.
Yeah, and I think too that the update and the reframe based on what you're sharing is like grade yourself differently, not on the external results, but how well did you execute what is within your control, your process. That can be your result. If you can put your head on your pillow at the end of the night, like I executed A, B, and C to the best of my ability, you should have a sound night of sleep with a smile on your face. And that's enough because you're enough.
Yeah, the three types of goals that I educate a lot of my athletes on is we've got outcome goals, performance goals, and process goals.
Yeah.
Outcome goals are winning the trophy. Performance goals would be how many greens and reg did you hit? How many
Yep.
fairway percentage did you hit? What was your up and down and sand save? Safe metrics and very valuable metrics. How many trophies do you have? Doesn't give me a lot of information. So I do like performance goals because it's something that you can control. You can refine your skill to improve greens hit and regulation. You can practice 3-footers to try to get to 99% rather than 87%. But where the success lies is in process goals. It's how you go about getting the performance goals. The performance goals then align up to get you the outcome. And the process goals are the actionable items that you can actually do as a human being to accomplish your performance and your outcome.
So when someone has that clarity of what they're working on, what's a priority to work on to ultimately get that outcome goal, in your experience with the diverse number of clients you've worked with, are you most working on overcoming a fear of failure or a fear of success?
Fear of failure ranks higher than fear of success. Absolutely. It's more inhibitive and defensive. It's the
Mm,
feeling of don't hit it left rather than
yeah.
hit it towards the tree that I see in the
Yep.
distance. And
Yeah.
the interesting thing is, I don't know if you found this true to yourself, the thing that we avoid the most typically is the thing that actually happens the most. So
Yeah.
if I don't want to hit it left and all my attention and energy goes into don't hit it left, don't hit it left, don't hit it left, sure as shit it goes left. But if I put my attention and energy into hit it to the tip of the tree, hit it to the tip of the tree, then I have a better chance of getting
Yeah.
it towards my target. So I look at it as defense versus offense. And so the
Yeah.
more I defend against messing up, giving a speech and stumbling over my words, saying the wrong thing to somebody in a lesson, coaching somebody the wrong way in a mental game session, the more that I defend against that, the more it happens. I can
Yeah.
recognize that that is a very viable fear or a very logical inhibition. But then the antidote for me, focus on what can I do?
Mm,
Breathe properly, talk slower, listen before I speak, focus on where I want to go, not where I don't want to go. And so being
yeah.
more on the offense I have found allows the fear of failure to dissipate to such a degree that attention is now shifted to more actionable items.
Hmm. I like that. I'm going to go one step further again. If we go back to, we've got these performance goals, we know what we need to work on, we're tracking our data. Inevitably, a lot of high achievers identify with that type A personality. Perfectionism gets thrown into the mix. So when you're working with an individual who's so well aware of the data, loves the data, thrives on the data, but gets so consumed by the numbers, everything has to be perfect. What's the conversation like around that?
Yes, the perfectionist mentality is a very unique one. And I would then ask or challenge, what in our world is ever perfect? Like, give me an example. You could go deep dive, like there's certain numbers that are perfect and mathematical equations that are perfect. Um, Maybe there's like a diamond or a lumency of a particular gem that is perfect. But we're really scratching, deep under to get those. No person on earth has ever played a perfect round of golf. And if you go through the history of great wins and listen to interviews by some of the greats, there will still be shots that are missed to some degree, but the misses are just better than everybody else's misses. So perfectionism is going to drive you literally insane because it's not actually possible. Greatness is possible. Striving for greatness and maybe never achieving it is possible and very fun because it keeps
Yeah.
you moving forward. Perfect is rigid. And if
Yeah.
we stay in that lane of it has to be perfect, you will find failure more often than not. Having the
Mm.
opportunity to strive for greatness and allow for flexibility and variability is, I find, the key. This isn't my own quote, but this comes from Pia Nelson and Lynn Marriott from Vision 54. It's
Yeah.
being the master of variability because life and
Hmm.
golf throw us so many curveballs, throw so many obstacles. The best way to combat it is to be so good at handling change. I think that is actually more perfect than having everything just go the right
Hmm.
way, the right super straight, and nothing interferes because that's just not possible. It's not realistic.
Kind of boring too. Maybe not on the golf course because it would generate very low scores. But like in terms of life, if everything's predictable and set out, you don't get to learn, you don't get to grow. There's no room for spontaneity and increased enjoyment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. How are you going to ever build muscle if there is no challenge, if there's no
Yeah.
stress to some degree?
Absolutely. So, one of my favorite questions to ask every guest is, you have a billboard that is visible from all 18 tee boxes on a golf course. You can put anything you want on that billboard. What are you putting on that billboard for all golfers to see?
Great question. You have everything you need to succeed.
Well, why? Why are you putting that?
I think that a lot of times individuals will doubt that they have tools in their toolbox to be able to succeed. And of course, success is in the eyes of the beholder. So what you think is successful is going to be different than me. But to have a reminder that I have everything I need to be successful, I already have it. And
Yeah.
if I can access it and I can tap into it, then I have a better chance of accomplishing what my goal is. That doesn't mean that you can't refine skill, but if an individual is reminded every single hole, I've got everything I need to be successful, you're going to play better golf, 100% guaranteed. But if you
I
also
love it.
remind yourself, like, I suck, or I'm a bad driver, or I'm a horrible chipper, or my three wood's awful, it's probably true. Those things are going to happen, 100%.
Yeah. Very well said. Dr. Allison, this was an absolute treat. Thank you so much for this conversation today.
Well, it's my pleasure. I really enjoyed connecting with you. I feel like we got great chemistry and can't wait
Yeah.
to chat more.
Absolutely. We'll definitely have you back on. Tell the listeners, where can they go to buy your incredible new book and to connect with you and to learn more about working with you?
So, exciting news starting on the 29th. The first published book is going to be available on Amazon. It's called The Golf
Yeah.
Performance Code: Unlocking
Awesome.
Secrets of Mind, Body, and Nutrition. And partnered up with two other leading industry experts on nutrition
Yeah.
and physical fitness, so that it's three books in one. And an individual who wants to know, no matter
Hmm.
where they are in their lifespan, how to improve their body or why their body is performing a certain way. You'll have answers to
Yeah.
that. How to fuel yourself with food appropriately before competition or a round of golf and during. And then finally, I tap into the psychology a bit, give you just a 101 on how you can perform better with some of the things that you and I talked about with reframing and self scripts and the things that we say to ourselves,
Mhm.
our self schemas. So it's a 3-in-1 book of mind, body, and nutrition, but it's available $9.29 on Amazon. And then for
Awesome.
anyone who wants to follow me on social media or reach out, Instagram and YouTube, Alison Curdt Golf. Do work with clients across the entire world on mental coaching. So, always have openings to help golfers play their best in the mental
Yeah.
game. And if you're ever in Los Angeles, that's where I'm located. Come out and see me, and we can work on the technical aspects of your swing.
True win-win. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. It's a great time, Paul. Thank you.
You bet. And for those of you listening, thank you so much for tuning into another episode. I would argue you have everything you need in you right now, only if you go listen to this episode again, because there is so much value, so many tangible takeaways, thought-provoking questions. Go do yourself a favor, listen again, have the note-taking device ready, and then go share it with a friend, a fellow golfer, a non-golfer. There's so much wisdom that can be applied to help everyone listening both on and off the course. And if you haven't done so already, it takes 30 seconds to leave a genuine rating and review. It's greatly appreciated. It gives me the street cred I need to have phenomenal guests just like Dr. Alison on the show and to keep getting more guests coming back every week. Well, thank you again for tuning into another episode. Hit them straight this weekend, and we'll catch you in the next episode.